right, let's get to baseball. Playoffs ongoing. Every series in the division round is 1-1. John Manuel, pro scout, former editor-in-chief of Baseball America, joins us on the Adam Gold Show. I have not spoken to you in way too long. You and I text a lot, but I have not spoken to you in a while. Honored that you'd carve out some time. So let me start with yesterday. Yankees in a little trouble?
Yeah, I think when you get Carlos Rodon pitching like someone texted me during the game, that was like 2013 Carlos Rodon against Cuba, the first couple of innings.
Right.
I mean, he was electric. He was peak Carlos, but it just, as it's been in his big league career, it doesn't last long enough.
Right.
And, I guess when the Yankees score 2 runs, you're not going to win either. So I do think they're in trouble. And their starting pitching is iffy. All their pitching's kind of iffy.
Yes.
It's weird. The teams that have the best record in each league, to me, are the most vulnerable of the teams left. The Dodgers and the Yankees. I think that, the greater baseball community, the industry, I should say, would like those 2 teams to be the flag bearers and to draw a lot of eyeballs and
right.
TV and make baseball matter. I handed the least likely teams of the 8 left to make it. Just my opinion.
I did not pick the Yankees or Dodgers to win to make it to the World Series. I picked the Yankees to get beyond the Royals, but I think Kansas City. Look, the Tigers are playing better than anybody in the American League right now, and it's between the Mets and the Padres for the teams playing the best baseball in the National League right now.
That's fair.
I mean, Padres, and I want to go to the San Diego-LA series next because that's getting spicy. But I think there's something to be said for not having a bye in the baseball playoffs. I just think that by not playing for 5 days, it hurts.
I think, we have a small sample size, but the eye test tells us that you're right, that offensive rhythm, you can rest your pitchers, but if you don't have any good pitchers anymore, like the Dodgers, because they're literally all hurt. No offense to the Dodgers.
Right.
But I think if you use the app, the MLB app, and you go to the Dodgers roster, the asterisk on their roster means on the injured list. I think they literally have 12 starting pitchers on the injured list. It's just absurd. So, yes, I think the eyeball evidence is you lose a little rhythm, you lose a little cohesiveness maybe. I just think back to the 2006 Tigers with Jim Leland, where they got to the World Series against a not very good Cardinals team, and they were just so rusty. And we just have seen examples of this as baseball has expanded its postseason, and things just aren't symmetrical, where you see these layoffs affect teams. And, Detroit is a team that, for the rest of the month, employee of the Minnesota Twins, they ran us down. I think they were 15 games better than the Twins in the last month of the season. And if they'd had to sit after that, maybe they lose some of that momentum. They clearly haven't lost any of that momentum. And I know they got shut out in the first game against Cleveland. I still think Detroit's talent level is not the way you would draw up a pennant-winning talent level. It's a good team.
Right.
But right now they have a plan, they have belief, and they don't have Javi Baez, and all those things are pointing them in a winning direction.
John Manuel is joining us here, pro scout, former editor-in-chief of Baseball America, is joining us on the Adam Gold Show. Would you be against, because I wouldn't, would you be against expanding the playoffs further to eliminate the byes? So, in other words, 8 teams in each league make the playoffs? I think the byes hurt the best teams.
That was MLB's plan. That was what Major League Baseball presented in the last CBA, was a 16-team plan, and the union counter with 14 teams. Honestly, I'm on team just blow it all up. I think 162 games is pointless now.
Right.
We have 14 teams that you're letting in. That demeans the 162 games. Players don't use amphetamines and have to fly on planes, and you do everything max effort. I just think this is why. Maybe I'm scarred having worked for the Twins for 7 years where everyone gets hurt. But I would reduce the schedule if you're going to increase the playoffs. So I would go to 144 games at minimum, which is Japan's schedule. or I would cut it down even lower because the records don't matter anymore, Adam.
No.
People are cynical, and the PED era seems to have ruined records for a lot of people. We have Justin Verlander with 250 wins, and no one else is even sniffing 300. I think all these achievements of the past that used to frame the sport are anachronistic now. I hate to say that as someone who loves a lot of those records, but I think the sport would do well to pivot in a hard way. And the pitch clock was a very hard pivot. It has worked extremely well. Mm-hmm. I think baseball should be more bold about some of these moves. And really, I think I would reduce the schedule in a significant way. I would go down as low as like 100 games. I mean, I really would.
100 game schedule. That might be crazy.
Well, I mean, the college schedule that you and I used to talk about all the time is a 56 game schedule, and it's weekends, and you only get your best pitchers, and that's a fun schedule. I don't want a 56 game schedule for Major League Baseball, but 100 or 120, we're playing a schedule because a bunch of dudes, thought this was a great idea in 1900. That's not, inertia has been extremely powerful. And again, those records, the traditions, I just think baseball took all those and chucked them in the trash when they let, the game just be, pew, 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 Wild West, anything goes. And all those records are in the garbage. So,
okay, interesting.
For a lot of fans anyway. So you say expand the playoffs? Sure, but I mean, the season's already too long. It already is easy enough for people to push to the back and say, yeah, I don't go to this game, I'll go to the game next week, or if you're in a big league market.
Right.
So just for me, I think I would just push the reset button wholeheartedly. If this is where they want all their TV money to come from, is just the postseason, and that's all the TV people care about, I think they're telling you your regular season and that inventory doesn't matter, so I would reduce it. That's just my opinion, but I'm kind of screaming into the void on that.
No, it's fine. I like it. The more
I'd
I think about
reimagine
it,
the whole thing.
144 games as opposed to 162. You're only talking about trimming the season by 3 weeks.
But you have more time for playoffs and playoffs that don't go into November.
Right.
I think making October matter. You have to make the regular season matter a little bit less, but be shorter. But also, you have more rest days in there for your star players. So hopefully, you're seeing the best of the best. You're not seeing the Dodgers with no offense to Landon Knack, he's talented, but you want to see Tyler Glasnow, not Landon Knack. You don't want to see everybody hurt. The sport shouldn't just be a war of attrition. Either that, or let's do like the Saturday Night Live skit, 30, 40 years ago, and have a PED. Baseball. I want to see these guys healthy, and if they need a little extra push, let them have the extra push. I just don't want to see. I'm not a fan of bullpenning either. Brian Kenny, forgive me, but
that's right.
I'm not a fan of. I respect how Detroit's done it, but that's not faceless middle relievers parade. That's not the way you build the sport.
Well, the Rays started that really many years ago, and it worked for them. It didn't work this year. And a lot of teams, it's cheaper. It's cheaper to pay a bunch of relievers than it is to pay a bunch of starting pitchers. The Dodgers' starting pitchers aren't even healthy. I get it. And we can have another debate or discussion about why starting pitchers can't stay healthy. It's all about velocity. It's not about anything else. Let me just ask you about those other two series in the National League. John Manuel joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. I talked about the spiciness of the Dodgers and Padres. I mean, they haven't been on too late, so there's no excuse. The games aren't starting at 10:30. They've been starting at 8:30. People have been able to watch the animosity between these two teams. Manny Machado throwing a ball not into the Dodger dugout, but at the Dodger dugout is interesting. But those two teams have been going at each other. Padres have a chip on their shoulder. I'm not sure they're not better.
Yeah, I think, most of these series you look at and you're like, I'm taking the team that has the best player. Like a lot of times I look at Kansas City and New York and it's like, Aaron Judge is awesome, but Bobby Witt Jr. might be the best player. Same thing, I look at Cleveland and Detroit, is the best player Tariq Skubal or Jose Ramirez. You look at the Dodgers and the Padres, you're like, okay, the best player is probably Ohtani.
Right.
But right now, Fernando Tatis is playing out of his mind. He's playing as well as his pants are tight. And Manny Machado, there's no bigger villain, I think, in MLB.
I love him.
Outside of the Astros. Like the Astros as a unit are a villain. But Manny Machado as a player, he welcomes it. And he is spicy. He's a spicy meatball, and he's kind of grown into this veteran role with San Diego. And that little meeting he had in the dugout the other day, they came out wailing after that. And if you're a casual and you've never seen Jackson Merrill play, he's from Severna Park, Maryland. I don't know if you knew that, Adam. He's from the same hometown as Gavin Floyd and Mark Teixeira. That something's in the water in that town for Major League Baseball players. Jackson Merrill is extremely smooth. I advise fans to watch him and enjoy watching him because he's very, very good. So, yeah, I think the Padres are the best team. I just don't put anything past Ohtani. If you told me Ohtani started Game 5 for the Dodgers through a CG, both-handed, I just would believe it.
They talked
He's the
about
greatest athlete I've ever seen.
They talked about the possibility of him pitching in the playoffs. I can't imagine that they would do that, knowing what they've invested in him. As
they owe him $680 million.
I know. I just can't imagine that they would risk using him in a playoff series when he hasn't pitched all year long. All right, real quick, Mets, Phillies. What gives the Mets have been resilient? I don't know. They're not as good as Philadelphia, obviously. But I've thought, while looking at the matchups, I would have rather played Philly than I would have rather played, I guess in the San Diego. I think the Mets are better against the Phillies, I think, than they would be against the Brewers. They beat the Brewers. I was kind of surprised at that. But how do you see this series?
They're so familiar with each other. I really do think it's going to, I hate to sound like Adam Wainwright, it is going to come down to execution. What we've seen so far is the Mets have had a hitter step forward in the postseason for them, besides Lindor, which is what you kind of needed. It's mostly been Mark Vientos with a little side dash of Brandon Nimmo. But both these teams, they're just such top-heavy offenses. I mean, the 5-hole hitters are Jose Iglesias for the Mets. Oh my gosh! I mean, who saw that coming? I just wanted to see your reaction if I mix that in. And Philadelphia is like hitting Brandon Marsh 5-hole or Alec Boehm. Alec Boehm hits 5-hole, then they bench him the next day.
Right, absolutely.
These are top-heavy lineups. So for me, the Mets lineup just looks a little bit better. I would trust Alonso more than I trust Castellanos. So I think the Mets are a little bit better. Where I worry is I think Diaz looks gassed. So will Carlos Mendoza be creative enough to mix and match in the Mets bullpen? And the most important player back there might be David Peterson all of a sudden. I have a soft spot for Colorado prep left-handers, and David Peterson is one of those. If you listened to me back in the day of Baseball America, you heard that rant many, many, many times. I love Colorado high school pitchers and North Carolina high school pitchers in the draft, so I give a slight edge to the Mets because of my fandom for Colorado high school pitchers and David Peterson.
And Peterson closed out the Brewer series. I appreciated the fact that Mendoza went to Edwin Diaz in the 7th inning because he felt that was the high leverage. He got him out of the 7th, but the 8th inning blew up in his face. Diaz has thrown well over 130 pitches in the last before the last 2 days. So in like a 10-day period, had thrown 135 or so pitches. So he might be completely gassed. That's John Manuel, former editor-in-chief of Baseball America, Pro Scout. Appreciate your time, sir. I will talk to you again as often as you will allow me to talk to you again.
It was good to talk to you. I'll let you know when my contract gets cleared up, but I'll have some clarity. So in the meantime, take advantage of it.
I will.
See you later.
I will. I'll talk to you later. John Manuel here on the Adam Gold Show.